Good evening. We are here welcoming Dr. Poulos again today, Tuesday, May 24th. She will provide us with an update of her meetings with the King County Health Department. And then we'll go into a question and answer series right after. So without further delay, I will introduce her. Estoy presentando a la doctora Poulos, que está con nosotros hoy este día martes por la noche, aquí para proveerles una actualización sobre cómo estamos aquí en el condado de Kane, proveído por el Departamento de Salubridad, y también para tomar las preguntas que tengan y presentárselas. Así es que bienvenidos esta noche. Dr. Poulos?
Hi, thanks for coming. Before Martha gets into her questions, which she's prepared for me, and I'm going to try to do everything in first in English, then in Spanish, and apologize in advance if there's a word I don't know in Spanish. I'd like to give a little introduction. As is my habit, I attended the King County Health Department Advisory Committee before this meeting, so as to try to give you the latest information. Something that I want to cover is how we're doing with vaccinations in our county. I'd say overall we're doing quite well. That would be slide number 9. I think Natalie was going to help share that for us. That, as you can see, that especially with the older population, which is the most vulnerable, that we're up to 87% vaccinated, and the total population with one booster is 50%, which really isn't bad. Could be better, of course, but I don't think our numbers are terrible. I think that I've noticed a little bit of COVID fatigue in many ways psychologically, and one of the ways has been people sort of not feeling like, oh, do I need to bother to get the other booster or need to bother with the booster? And the answer is yes. COVID mutates. That's natural. Viruses mutate, bacteria mutate, and the boosters help you keep up with that. It also helps keep up your immune system. Many vaccines, their effectiveness declines with time. We're used to this. With COVID, what's different is that it declines a little more rapidly than, say, tetanus. You get your tetanus shot every 10 years. It looks like the COVID shot at the moment, we're getting boosters about every 4 to 6 months. And that might change in the future. But for now, this is what seems to be optimal. So I think these numbers are good. They could be better. The second slide I wanted to show by way of an introduction would be slide number 10. And there's the interesting message here. Look at the blue line, okay? And that's up to March. It starts last year, it goes up to March, like 2 months ago. And the difference in that peak between the blue line and the green line is getting hospitalized if you're vaccinated versus if you're not vaccinated. I think that's a pretty big difference, and it proves the point. I get depressed when people tell me, well, I don't want to get vaccinated, you'll get sick anyway. Well, the point is, maybe you'll get sick, but maybe pretty for sure, you won't die. You won't end up in the hospital. You'll be miserable at home for a few days, maybe more, maybe, but it's not going to be as bad. So, para revisar en español, antes de que Marta empiece con sus preguntas, que siempre se prepara, para mí yo quiero darles una introducción. If you could go back to slide 9. Yo asisto a una reunión del condado de Kane, del Departamento de Salud, cada 2 o 3 meses, y las últimas estadísticas son buenas. Yo creo que puede ser mejor, pero algo que se puede notar es que más que 80% de las personas avanzadas de edad en ese condado están vacunados. También que hay un poco más que la mitad que están vacunados y con la refuerza. En general, yo sé que hay personas que se quejan porque tengo que hacer otra refuerza, no me gusta, mi brazo duele. Pues casi todas las vacunas, casi todas necesitan una refuerza para mantener los anticuerpos en la sangre y para combatir a las mutaciones, las variaciones del virus o de la bacteria. Por eso es recomendable, muy recomendable. Entonces, esa fue mi breve introducción del condado. Yo tengo muchos más datos, pero quiero pasarle a Marta para que haga las preguntas.
Muy bien. Okay, I wanted to just share some observations that I've seen here. And that's that, about a week and a half ago or so, our country marked a very grim figure of 1 million deaths due to COVID. The World Health Organization estimates that there may have been as many as 15 million deaths that went unreported. Here at the library, after seeing the surge and the plunge of Omicron, referrals from Kane County almost came to a standstill. We didn't have any. But in late April and early May, we've again begun to see them steadily come in again. Nothing drastic like the first Omicron, but we're beginning to see them. Experts feel that for every infection that is reported, there are 7 to 8 unreported due to the at-home COVID tests. En esta semana pasada, nuestro país marcó una sombría cifra de 1 millón de muertes a causa del Omicron. La OMS estima que quizás hasta 15 millones de muertes no fueron reportadas. Aquí en la biblioteca, después de haber visto la ola de subida y de bajada drástica del Omicron original, los casos remitidos por el condado de Kane de personas infectadas referidas a nosotros, casi llegaron a un paro completo. Pero ahora a fines de abril y de mayo, pues comenzamos a ver que otra vez empiezan poco a poco a verse, no tan drástico como lo vimos como con el Omicron original. Y los expertos creen que por cada infección que sea reportada, quizás hayan hasta 7 o 8 sin reportar, debido a que se están haciendo pruebas en casa. Entonces, con eso quiero empezar con mi primera pregunta. Doctor, the first question was, does the county feel we're at the start of another surge?
I don't know if I'd use the word surge. We didn't use the word surge at our meeting,
Okay.
but it was certainly on a beginning of an upswing. That might turn into a surge. This was also addressed, if you get the Courier, this Sunday's Courier had a front page article about it, that the numbers are going up, that had gone down to a real low, but I think it's human nature to kind of slack off and feel reassured. And so people start feeling like, oh yeah, it's over. COVID was a drag, it's over. No, COVID was a drag, it is a drag, it's not over. And for example, it's gone from 0.8% of the beds being taken up by a COVID patient in the hospitals to 2.2%. And that's admissions. And admissions might be the best way to track it right now because of all the home testing. Test positivity is not probably going to be as useful a number. Okay. Mi respuesta es, la pregunta fue si estamos empezando otra onda. Tal vez una pequeña onda, no usaron exactamente la palabra onda o surge en mi reunión hoy, pero es cierto que los números están empezando a levantarse. También fue una noticia en el Courier, en el periódico de Elgin, que lo dice y lo puedo leer ustedes mismos. Yo creo que es por varias razones. Siempre están mutaciones o varios del virus. También personas que es natural que se enfadan de usar máscara, de estar siempre en cuidado, de tener miedo, se enfadan y quieren regresar a totalmente lo normal, pero eso deja más oportunidad que se transmita el virus. Hay que tratar de combatir a esta inclinación a regresar totalmente como si no fuera nunca COVID. Okay.
Very well. Otra pregunta es que
back in English, right?
Yeah, I'll do the English. There is talk of a fall surge. That is to be expected as with the cooler weather, activities move indoors. But more recently, there has been discussion about a summer surge similar to the one a couple of years ago. Have you seen anything in your practice?
Well, it's almost summer now. And in my personal practice, we've seen quite a few more phone calls. The way we're tracking it now is just people self-reporting a positive test and calling to see if they're appropriate for Paxlovid, which is one of the antiviral drugs we talked about 2 months ago, if you recall. So I think that there's at least a bump up, if not a surge. And it kind of depends on us. It depends on the mutations, but it kind of depends on us and how sensible people are about, for example, especially if you know you're vulnerable and you're going to an indoor place that might be crowded. Even though there's not a mask mandate, wear a mask. So summer surge, maybe, a lot of these things, who can predict? But there are times when people are together more, say the summer holidays. Luckily, most of them are celebrated outdoors. In the fall, the kids go back to school. There's another opportunity. So I think it's quite possible there'll be some type of surge or blip. Will it be as bad as Omicron? I don't think so. But we shall see. We should sort of be vigilant, be on top of things. La pregunta fue si vamos a tener otra onda en el verano o en el otoño. Francamente no sé, no puedo prevenir por cierto, pero lo que hemos visto en nuestra oficina, más llamadas por teléfono de personas que hacen el test en la casa, salen positivos y quieren informarse. Muy más llamadas que antes. Cada día es un poco más ese número. También hay muchas oportunidades de tener fiestas en esta época, bodas, graduations y todo, que nos da más oportunidad de tener contagio. Gracias a Dios que muchas de esas fiestas están afuera, pero no todas. En el otoño también hay una preocupación porque en otoño los niños regresan a la escuela, otra oportunidad de estar muy congestados y con más riesgo. Entonces, no podemos pensar que ya COVID se fue, no hay que preocuparse, no existe. No, sí, todavía existe, hay que tenerlo tenerlo pendiente.
Okay. There's a lot of confusion about when to take the second booster, how soon after the first booster, now or in the fall. What can you tell us?
I would say that take the second booster. The current recommendation is to take it 4 months after the first booster. And that's based on much brighter minds than me that are virologists and that are epidemiologists and that track the blood levels of the immunity and so forth. So I was actually personally surprised. I was expecting them to say 6. They said 4. I'm like, they're doing the test. I'm sitting here in Elgin. So yeah, get it in 4 months. So, la pregunta es, ¿para cuándo detener la segunda refuerza? La recomendación es 4 meses después de la primera refuerza y hasta ahorita no es para todos, es para personas más que 50 años de edad y personas más delicadas. También, also just to flip back to English for a second, something that concerns me that was also in the Courier, but in one of the inside pages because it's the national news, was an article from the Associated Press about how there's some kind of a political holdup in the funding for more COVID money, which is a problem because we will need more vaccine, we will need more Paxlovid, we've got to buy it, So that is a concern to me for the autumn as well. Otra preocupación es que ojalá que los políticos se componen y hacen lo que deben de hacer, es de prestar más dinero por comprar más vacunas y más medicina para el COVID, porque en este minuto hay algún problema política que se discutió también en el Urgent Courier el domingo. It was page 5 or 6. So.
Muy bien. Okay. Many have experienced COVID-like symptoms, yet their at-home tests come out negative. Why might this be?
Oh, a couple of reasons. First of all, actually, you know what? I've got to rewind for 1 second because there were 2 important slides I wanted to show people. I apologize.
Oh, okay.
Natalie, if we could show first slide 2 and then slide 3. Slide 2 is another, you asked me, is there another surge? You can see, compare April to May. See those numbers from 2 to 8.1. Okay. And if you go to the next slide, number 3, as far as the current recommendations for how to try to diminish the next surge and how to protect yourself. So if you flip back to the other one, I'll just say the same thing in Spanish. Disculpe, me olvidé a comentarle de 2 cosas importantes se discutieron en el condado. If you could go back to the one with the numbers. Yeah, here, aquí es. Se puede ver que el número de hospitalizaciones sí está aumentando. And to the next slide again, las recomendaciones en general de vacunarse, de hacer el test, de usar la máscara, especialmente si estás delicado, de usar máscara en el autobús o el tren. Y si está personas que usted sabe que está delicado con bronquitis, con con problemas de corazón, con cáncer, usa máscara en la tienda. Okay, so sorry I backtracked. Now
That's
getting back
okay.
to the question about, where were we?
The question
testing.
was on,
Well,
yeah,
testing can have a false negative. First of all, people, okay, you go to a party. The next day, someone calls you and says, oh, geez, I came down with COVID, I tested, and you freak out and you test yourself the next day. Well, it's not going to be positive. It's too soon. So even though you're freaked out, basically wear a mask, try to use common sense. If you think you might have been exposed, maybe this is not the day to visit your 90-year-old grandmother, okay? And test, the recommendation, and this is slide number 11, is to test in 5 days after. I know people are super impatient. Okay, you can test in 3, but you might just be wasting a test. Next thing, if you have all the symptoms, if you have a lot of symptoms, if you're really concerned and the test is negative, the self-tests have false negatives, not false positives. I don't see that much, false negatives. Talk to your provider about somehow getting an order and going to, there's a variety of places where you can get what's called the PCR test, which is the more accurate. Okay. Entonces, ¿por qué tenemos personas que tienen síntomas y salen negativos? La razón, en mi opinión, más frecuente es que se ponen muy ansiosas después de tener contacto con una persona con COVID y hacen el test inmediatamente. Hay que esperar a lo menos 3 días. El CDC recomienda 5 días. ¿Okay? Otra cosa es que si tiene todos los síntomas, especialmente si se falta su sabor, ¿no? Que pierde el sentido de sabor o de olfacción, trata de conseguir un test que se llama el PCR, que es el más seguro. Okay.
Muy bien. Okay, what would you say to a parent who is hesitant to vaccinate an eligible child? And I think we're going to show slide 11. I mean, slide 12. Here.
Slide 12. Yeah, you got it. Slide 12. Yeah, what I would say is, in simple words, do it. Basically, all the physicians I know that are either parents or grandparents are, either getting their own kids vaccinated or urging their children to vaccinate the grandchildren, their adult children. Kids get sick too. Kids can have sequelae, not as bad as us. And also having children that are ill contribute to the whole vaccine pool going on. This vaccine has been around for well over a year. Children have been getting it for almost a year. I think the sequelae, the results of getting COVID itself are far worse than the results of the vaccine. Now, I know there's some people I'm never going to convince, but that's what I believe. And you have to realize it's not just the effects. Children get affected by being ill themselves. But I want to take a little detour onto that mental health issue that we talked about. Children also get affected by the loss of their primary caregiver. So vaccinate yourself, because children have lost parents, grandparents, big important people in their lives throughout these last 2 years, and it's contributed to a lot of grief and depression among children. The rates of attempted suicide among teenage girls has increased 50% during the pandemic. So these are all reasons to try to keep our children healthy and keep ourselves healthy. It's not only their physical health, it's also their mental health. Okay? So, contestando en español, yo entiendo que personas tienen miedo o tienen algunas dudas o preocupaciones de dar a su hijo una nueva vacuna, pero hemos dado a nuestros hijos tantas otras vacunas. Esta vacuna se ha dado en millones de personas en todo el mundo y no se ven consecuencias malas en comparación con el COVID verdadero, que sí puede tener consecuencias malas, gracias a Dios, no tanto a los niños que a los adultos, pero todavía que sí. También hay que pensar en los efectos en la salud mental de los niños de esa pandemia, si los niños mismos se ponen enfermos o si ponen enfermos los adultos en su vida que los cuidan. Hay tantos niños que han perdido su padre, su abuelo, su mamá, que eso les cuesta mucho. Y este efecto se ve más recio en personas de origen hispano o personas negros que en los blancos en este país. Tal vez porque el COVID pegó más fuerte a estas poblaciones. So.
Muy bien. Okay. there's been talk of a new after effect of a COVID infection, and that's hair loss. I know ABC Morning News medical commentator Dr. Jennifer Ashton had noted that after her COVID infection, she noticed hair loss. She reported that up to 50% of, 20% of people who have had COVID report hair loss. Can you comment on this, please?
Sure. This is actually, it's not just COVID. This is a well-known phenomenon. It has to do with how our bodies react to stress, and our hair goes through a hair growth cycle. I'll try not to bore people. The technical term for this is called telogen effluvium. The hair, you're always losing hair. You just don't know it because the hair, you're always losing a certain percentage of hairs every day, and you just don't notice because it's not a lot. With a big physical or sometimes even a big emotional stress, your hair actually stops growing, and the dead hair, that's what's called the telogen phase, all the hairs go into the sort of dead phase and fall out. The good news is that you won't become bald due to this effect, because there's a new hair, as you can see that last little picture, a new hair that's pushing out the old hair. So it's a very awkward, say, month or so of people losing their hair. I see it more in the people that have had a more serious COVID or had COVID with a high fever, but I've seen this plenty in other illnesses. So it's not a new phenomenon. It's very well understood, and people have to just kind of hang in there for it. So eso es algo que ese efecto, ¿por qué se pierde el? Oh, do you want to restate the question in Spanish? Or
yeah, I can say that there. Se ha sabido de un efecto secundario, un nuevo efecto secundario de una infección de COVID, es decir, la caída de cabello. La comentarista médica en las noticias matutinas de ABC, la doctora Jennifer Aniston, dijo que notó que después de que se infectó con COVID, comenzó a perder su pelo y informó que se ha observado que hasta un 20% de las personas que han sido infectadas por COVID pierden el pelo. Entonces le pido a la doctora que nos comente sobre esto.
No es solamente un efecto de COVID, es un efecto de cualquier enfermedad grave. Eso puede ocurrir, una enfermedad que tiene fiebre o a veces hasta un gran shock o susto emocional. El cabello usualmente cada día estamos perdiendo algunos cabellos que se mueran y se salen, pero con un gran shock al cuerpo, un gran dificultad que pasa al cuerpo, como un fiebre alto, una enfermedad grave, todos los cabellos se paran a crecer. Eso se llama en este dibujo telogen. Se paran a crecer y después de 3 meses caen. No inmediatamente, después de 3 meses. Lo bueno es que hay un nuevo cabello que se ve en el último dibujo que está creciendo. Es decir, que no vas a necesitar peluca, ¿ok? No te asustes. Va a crecer, hay que tener paciencia, tal vez a cambiar a otro estilo del cabello para cambiarlo, pero no, es algo que lo hemos visto con muchas otras enfermedades. Okay.
That's good news, doctor, because I'm sure a lot of people who have experienced it are very distressed about it, adding further to the problem.
One more thing, yeah.
Yeah, so qué bueno que es temporal y que se recupera el cuerpo, porque esto también puede estresar a las personas, ¿verdad? La caída del cabello. Doctor, have you seen any other unusual symptoms or effects of a COVID infection?
I wouldn't say unusual, but one thing we see a lot of, I see 3 things that people have to deal with. Fatigue, brain fog or feeling fuzzy, not feeling quite as sharp, and cough or shortness of breath. In fact, I saw a patient the other day who's had a very severe case that unfortunately her lungs so scarring. So I really don't know how much better that particular individual will get. We can't predict. This is all new. We're just watching it. I think that all of those symptoms, especially the cough, it depends on how the lungs are doing, how the CAT scan looks several months later, but the fatigue, the brain fog, it takes a while, it gets better. the cough and so forth, I kind of worry a little more because it depends on how severe the COVID was and how much healing there's been. So, me preguntó sobre las consecuencias a larga distancia de la enfermedad y yo he visto, en general, los puedo comentar de tres que son muy notables. Uno es cansancio, las personas que son muy fatigados por mucho tiempo. Segundo es que personas que se sienten como un poco confundidos, que la mente no es tan fuerte como era, que no se pueden acordar de cosas o hacer cosas más difíciles mental, como matemáticas. Y la tercera cosa es falta de aire y tos, que a veces dura por mucho tiempo. Las primeras dos síntomas, en mi experiencia, poco a poco se ponen mejor. El problema con el falta de aire depende. Yo tengo algunos pacientes, no muchos, pero algunos en mi oficina, que todavía están padeciendo más que un año después porque se quedaron cicatrizados sus pulmones, que es otra razón de tomar la vacuna, porque esas dos personas son personas jóvenes, no tuvieron ni cáncer, ni fumaron, ni nada. Y entonces hay que tomarlo en serio esta enfermedad.
Okay, muy bien. Okay, the new, the last big variant was the BA.2, which is known to be highly contagious, yet it hasn't spread as fast as the original Omicron. Why might that be?
I think because from what I've read, I think it's because it happened so close to the original Omicron that there's some cross protection from the first Omicron surge. And don't forget that they're running out of Greek letters, so now they're giving them numbers. There's slide 7. If you want to show slide 7, there's now that yellow, we're getting into BA2 and BA 2.12.1. It's almost like you feel like you're buying a computer program or something, you know, they're beta testing the Omicrons. That yellow is the latest one that's kind of starting to make the rounds. The more viruses mutate when they're in a person, the less we keep spreading this virus, the fewer. It's a vicious circle. The more we kind of use bad judgment, the more we'll get COVID, the more we'll spread it around, the more we'll get mutations or variants. So, but the one thing that's lucky is that maybe because these Omicron variants are coming so soon after the huge Omicron surge, you know, like that, like, you know, this was horrible. So it's coming so soon afterwards that maybe we still have some protection.
Okay.
¿Se quiere repetir la pregunta en español?
Sí, la pregunta en español es que el nuevo variante BA.2 es altamente contagioso, pero no se ha regado como fue el Omicron original. ¿Y por qué piensa usted que fue esto, que no se dispersó más?
De lo que yo entiendo, que he leído, piensan que es porque la primera onda de Omicron, que era tan recia, tan fuerte, nos dejó con una tal cantidad de refuerzas y por eso nos está pegando tan fuerte los otros varios sublineages, se llama. Y hay que tener cuidado porque si se ve esta pequeña línea amarilla, es el más nuevo, el más recién tipo ovario, mutación. Y por eso hay que tratar de no, vamos a tener más varios si vamos a tener más infecciones. Hay que tratar de no infectarse tanto, de usar máscara en la tienda, de no irse para visitar gente delicada si no se siente bien. Hay varias cosas muy lógicas que se puede hacer. Pero en este minuto parece que el tipo BA.2 sí es muy contagioso, pero no hemos tenido una onda tan fuerte.
Okay. Has there been any discussion on what determinants will be used to declare that the COVID-19 pandemic is over?
I apologize. One thing I meant to do today that I didn't was to try to look up the World Health Organization definition of endemic. Okay, I'm sure that there's an actual definition, but in terms of, but from some other things that I read, I was reading some other things, then I got sidetracked. The endemic means that it's sort of like how influenza is for most years. Influenza, it comes around every year. We kind of know how bad it'll be. We can prepare for it. Or, for example, before there was a vaccine for chickenpox, that chickenpox was not a pandemic. Most people got it, but the endemic, I think, is going to be a matter of numbers, and it's going to be determined. We're not there yet, and the reason we're not there yet for sure is because we're still having these waves, and we still don't. I still don't think we have enough of a handle on this to call it over yet. I think it's getting better, but I think it's definitely getting better. I think it's going to be endemic eventually. It's not going to be like smallpox. We got rid of smallpox completely. I don't think it's going to be like smallpox. I don't think this virus is going to be like that, but I think it's going to be endemic. It's not endemic yet, but I'm sorry, I don't know the actual strict definition.
That's fine. ¿Qué determinantes se utilizarán para declarar que la pandemia del COVID-19 ha terminado?
Hasta en este minuto no ha terminado, estoy cierta. Disculpe que no tuve la oportunidad hoy de investigar la definición de la Organización Mundial de Salud, WHO. Esto es cierto que ellos tienen una definición que tiene que ver con números específicos, pero que todavía estamos con ondas, no tenemos en control, tenemos que seguir. Es cierto que no estamos como la influenza, que todos conocemos que la influenza ocurre cada año. En el invierno hay que tomar la vacuna en el otoño y después de como abril, mayo se pasa. Ese es endémico. Lo podemos controlar, lo podemos manage, podemos vivir con eso. En este minuto, ahorita mismo, no estamos en este nivel de control con COVID. Pero yo creo que sí vamos a estar aquí algún día.
Okay. It's been reported that new vaccines will be coming out for the newer variants. Has it been said when they might be available, and will they be staggered by age and vulnerability, or do you think they'll be rolled out to the general public?
I think that's going to be more of a political question and a money question. For sure, there will be new vaccines. I know that, for example, Pfizer is always talking about what new vaccines they're trying to develop and to deal with the variants. The question is there going to be enough money appropriated to have it for everyone, or will it have to be rationed that will start with the seniors and the first responders? But I'm certain, I think that not that there will be new vaccines, I think new vaccines are being developed even as we speak, or tweakings of the vaccine.
Se ha informado que saldrán nuevas vacunas para los nuevos variantes. ¿Sabe cuándo podrían estar disponibles? Y ¿sabe si los administrarán escalonados por edad o por alguna vulnerabilidad? ¿O cree que el lanzamiento será general?
Como les comenté de un artículo en la Courier este domingo, estoy cierta que vamos a tener nuevas vacunas. En este minuto sí están investigándolas y preparándolas, probablemente por el otoño. Ojalá. El problema es que es cuestión económica y política si vamos a tener en este país, en los Estados Unidos, suficiente dinero para hacer órdenes, para comprar suficiente vacuna por todos lo que quieren vacunarse, o si vamos a tener que hacer lo que hicimos el año pasado, empezando con los viejos, con las personas que trabajan en medicina y pasó. Eso vamos a ver, pero tiene más que ver con la economía y la política.
Okay. It's being said that there are newer variants such as the BA.4 and .5 out of South Africa that are not impacted by vaccines or prior infections. Do you know if that is true or not? And if it is, what can we do? Are we going back to spring of 2020?
I haven't heard that. The little that I was able to read up on those newer variants, I think that's a exaggeration, and I don't think we have to always be concerned about new variants. But with every new variant they talk about, they get into, how many mutations are they, how much the spike proteins change. I don't think we're ever going to get back as bad as March 2020 because of, even though it may not be really good protection, but there's still going to be some residual protection from having some previous variety, either of the illness or of the vaccine. Also, I think that our knowledge is a lot better in general, our knowledge of this virus. Remember when we were having all these discussions about how many feet apart and what kind of mask? I think we've learned quite a bit. So we're not going back to March 2020. However, I don't know enough about these new variants to say that the vaccines that we've had now, will they be useless? I don't think so. But, let's wait and see.
Ok. Se dice que las nuevas variantes más nuevas, como el BA.4 y .5 de Sudáfrica, no se ven afectadas por las vacunas o infecciones previas. ¿Sabe si esto es cierto o no? Y si es cierto, ¿qué podemos hacer? ¿Volveremos a la primavera del 2020?
No creo que volveremos al marzo de 2020. Probablemente que tenemos más conocimiento, sabemos más sobre cómo protegerse en general con máscaras, con limpieza, con mantener la distancia, todo eso, que los tenemos datos más que teníamos. No conozco mucho sobre esas dos variantes, apenas empezaron a tenerlo en Sudamérica y en India, pero aunque tal vez la vacuna no va a ser muy fuerte, sí vamos a tener alguna protección de las vacunas viejas. No completa, pero algo mejor que nada. Yo creo que por varias razones no vamos a regresar al como era el mundo hace 2 años.
Muy bien. Related to that is how you think we will fare in 2020 compared to previous years, better or worse?
Well, it kind of depends on us, our own behavior too, because it's not just that the virus has one goal: it wants to replicate. It doesn't necessarily want to kill us. It just wants to replicate. But we have a lot of goals, like we want to see our family and go to dances and, be normal. So we kind of depends on us to just use some common sense, to not become recluses, to not hide in our homes. But on the other hand, to just say, okay, there's this virus going around. I don't want to get sick. I don't want to cough for the rest of my life. I don't want to kill my grandmother. Maybe I'll wear a mask. So I think that 2022 will be better for a whole bunch of reasons, but it partly depends on us.
Great. ¿Cómo cree que nos irá en el 2020 en comparación a años anteriores? ¿Mejor o peor?
Yo tengo esperanza que va a ser mejor, pero depende de nosotros también, porque el virus es muy sencillo, quiere sobrevivir, quiere replicarse, no tiene alma. Nosotros tenemos son muy más complicados que el virus. Queremos divertirnos, ver a los parientes, ir a fiestas y todo eso. Eso es natural, lo entiendo. Yo soy también ser humano, pero hay que tratar de usar nuestra mente para ser un poco más lógico y de pensar que tal vez sería mejor en este lugar de usar máscara. Tal vez no me siento bien, no voy a visitar a esta persona anciana. Mi doctora recomendó la refuerzo, lo voy a hacer. Esas cosas. Si hacemos esas cosas sencillas, yo creo que sí vamos a tener un año muy mejor que el año pasado y el año anterior.
Okay, muy bien. What people present the most risk of grave illness should they contract COVID?
I think that's become pretty well known by now.
Mm-hmm.
Simply age, the older individuals, over 60, over 65, that age group, even if you're healthy, because even if you're healthy, your immune system is not quite as strong. People with chronic lung disease, chronic heart disease, diabetes, cancer, people, the list, obviously people with organ transplants that are on immunosuppressive drugs, there's the people, there's a very kind of pretty well-known list. And if someone isn't sure if they fall into that group, it's very simple, just ask your physician.
Okay. So la pregunta es que ¿cuáles son las personas que están en mayor riesgo de enfermarse de COVID?
Las personas más mayores de edad, no solamente de enfermarse, cualquier persona lo puede contactar, pero de ponerse muy grave enfermedad. En la edad, por problemas crónicos de pulmón, de corazón, diabetes, cáncer, cualquier persona que ha tenido un trasplante, porque esas personas toman medicina por toda su vida para combatir el rechazo. Entonces, este es el grupo que sí tiene que preocuparse. Si una persona no está cierta, si está en alto riesgo, hay que discutirlo con su médico.
Y claro, también los no vacunados, and surely enough, also the unvaccinated are always at higher risk.
Well, of course, yeah,
Yeah.
of course, yeah, that goes without saying.
Okay.
Incluso, claro, las personas, como les he enseñado, and wait, let me find it. This slide, las personas aquí que no son vacunados se enfermaron más, se internaron más.
Sí, that's true. People that were unvaccinated, they suffered many more infections than those that were vaccinated. Okay, a little bit off topic, but something that's very hot in the news right now is the monkeypox. It's generated a lot of interest in the news. What can you tell us about it?
Well, I had to read up on it, and it's in a worldwide preoccupation. I watch Greek TV on the weekends, and that's basically all they've been talking about. Monkeypox, first of all, monkeypox is usually limited to Africa. It's not a new infection. It's been known for, I believe, decades. They call it monkeypox because it was first found in a research area that was some kind of a zoo or something that had monkeys in it. I don't know too much about it. And it has, oh good, this is a very helpful slide. This is from the CDC. The virus is very similar to smallpox, which is a scary illness, but it's a much milder illness than smallpox. Not as much risk of death. And the symptoms in the first few days are your typical kind of viral symptoms, but then people get a very distinctive pox, which are blisters. They look, no one listening to this program has probably ever seen smallpox, but a lot of people have seen chickenpox. So think of like chickenpox, but except that all the blisters are the same. Chickenpox, the blisters are popped, some are not, some are scabbed. This is like they're all the same at the same stage. So we don't really know, no one really knows how it got to Europe. It's been quite a few cases in Europe, a few cases in the US. As of right now, they don't think it's like a mutation of the monkeypox. I think it's the same one that's been in Africa all this time. I suspect that, you can be on a plane and in a half a day, you're halfway around the world. So I'm sure that after they do some more research, they'll figure out that the index case in Europe traveled from Africa. And, I'm sure that's going to be something like that. Those of us who are old enough to have gotten the smallpox vaccine, which was last given in the USA in 1972, that it's a close enough virus that it's a protection. I looked it up for Mexico, and I was actually surprised. I think Google is wrong because Google said that Mexico stopped giving the smallpox vaccine in 1952, which seems awfully early. That seems way too early to me. But anyway, and if you don't know, you can look at your arm because there's like a circular little thing on your arm that's left or on your thigh. And it looks like a circle with little pokey holes in it. And and it's not the BCG, because if you're from Mexico and you got the BCG, that one is shaped like this, and the smallpox one is round. So, but that's for people that are older, let's say. So the young people, I don't think there's any need to panic. I think the CDC is really trying to stay very much on top of this. The whole world, we've all been sensitized by COVID. So everyone's like, oh no, now what? But one thing about this illness also that'll make it, I think, easier to control is that it is extremely obvious once someone has the pox. It's not like COVID where someone has a cold and a cough and you don't know. I mean, if someone is covered with these pox, So I think it'll be easier to control. I mean, I don't know if I have enough neurons left to worry about one more thing right now. So
Okay.
I could say this, yeah, and in Spanish too, I guess.
Okay, un nuevo virus que, aunque no relacionado con el COVID, ha generado mucha atención en los medios noticieros en estos últimos días, es la viruela del mono. ¿Qué nos puede decir acerca de eso?
El viruela de mono no es una nueva infección, está conocida en África por como más que 20 años, pero es casi la primera vez que se encuentra afuera de África. Y es un virus similar a la viruela, y la persona infectada empieza con un resfrío, fiebre, dolor de músculos, los síntomas muy comunes con cualquier virus, pero después de unas 2 o 3 días, a veces un día, a veces 3 días, empiezan con unos pústulos, así, vejiga, así, ampollas, con ampollas en todo el cuerpo, que todos parecen iguales, y redondos y blancos, y llenas de líquido o pus. Es muy distinto. No es algo que se puede confundir. Hay pocos casos en Europa, en los Estados Unidos hay bastante interés. Las personas que han tenido la vacuna de viruelas tienen protección, pero esa vacuna se paró de dar en este país en el año 72 porque se venció el viruelas. El viruelas ya no existe en el mundo. ¿Okay? No tenemos un caso de viruelas por muchos años, décadas. El último caso fue un niño en India hace como 30 años, hace mucho tiempo. Pero claro que hay miedo y preocupación, y especialmente porque estamos tan asustados y cansados de COVID. Emocionalmente las personas tienen mucho interés. Claro que es importante, claro que hay que prestar atención, pero no creo que en este minuto, no creo que es razón de tener pánico. También he oído discusión, pues si es necesario empezar a vacunar personas contra eso. Hasta ahorita no he oído nada de eso.
Okay. Muy bien.
Y si estás en duda si ha tenido la vacuna, las personas de México tienen 2 vacunas en los brazos, y una, si es cuadrada, es la BCG, es para tuberculosis. Y si estás una persona más vieja y es una vacuna redonda, eso sería la de viruela.
Okay,
porque se ve como un cicatriz, como de tamaño, como un dime, como una moneda pequeña.
Okay. En círculo.
Círculo.
Mucho, muy bien. Okay. Coming back to COVID, we always want to share where you can get more information. I don't know if Natalie has a slide to share with us or not, but certainly the King County vax.org is a site. The CDC.gov is also a site. And certainly we at Gail Borden have www.elgincovidhelp.com as well. So all of these are sites where you can get more information. Things always seem to be rapidly changing. And so it's always sometimes good to just go to the source of this. I also want to share with you, bueno, en español también para decirles, queremos siempre, regresando al tema del COVID, donde pueden tener más información, pues puede ser en el Kane County Vax, que es aquí del condado, kanecountyvax.org. También en la cdc.gov, y claro, también en la biblioteca tenemos una página web, elgincovidhelp.com, y son lugares donde como están cambiando las noticias tan rápido, pues ahí puedan buscar información, ¿verdad? Que esté al corriente. I also want to share with you that this Friday, the May 27th, we will be having a last Friday of the month clinic. It will be from 12:30 to 5:30, and we will welcome walk-ins from 1 to 5 so that we can take care of those that have scheduled appointments first and at the end of the day. But certainly they'll be available as long as supplies last. And so that will be this coming Friday at the library. Please, if you're not vaccinated, feel free to come in for your booster shot. Quiero compartirles que este viernes vamos a tener una clínica en la biblioteca de 12:30 a 5:30. En general con cita y sin cita de 1 a 5 p.m. Y habrá mientras hayan vacunas disponibles. Y los invitamos a que si no están aún con su vacuna del refuerzo, que se presenten en la biblioteca para que les puedan aplicar su vacuna del refuerzo. Con esto, pues, with this, I would like to thank you, Dr. Poulos, for taking the time to research everything and share with us what you know, and share what you've learned also from King County, because that's important as to what's happening in our community. And so con eso, le quiero agradecer a la doctora Poulos que ha compartido mucha información y ella buscó toda esta información, se puso al corriente y compartió lo que a ella le compartieron en el Departamento de Salubridad del condado de Kane. Y entonces, muchas gracias por hacer eso. Los esperamos en la clínica del viernes, otra vez de 12:30 a 5:30. Y después tendremos otra el último viernes de junio, que será, yo creo que la última por el momento. Pero, so we'll have another one also, another clinic in the last Friday in June, 24th. That will maybe the last one for a while, but until things start picking up again. But muchas gracias. Thank you for your attention this evening. And I'm sure we will be in communication going into the future. Thank you, Doctora Poulos. Gracias.
Muy amable. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.